the next stage is to fit the alternator. To that end, I have fitted the 3 studs that the alternator sits on, and they are turned down or screwed in with a stud runner and a very small amount of blue medium strength Loctite, so they'll come out again. One of the things I have experienced many times with a Lucas alternator is when you take the nuts out that hold the alternator in place, the whole stud comes out, which is, you know, not the end of the world, but it is a pain. So each stud has a spacer on it, and this is where the compromise comes in that the retaining plate for the belt is actually held in place by the alternator rotor. Normally there would be a little bit of space behind there, and the idea with this alternator is to ensure that the pickups, which are the plates inside, actually run over or are positioned over the magnets. But with this, this has to sit a little bit further out because these studs interfere with the plastic casing, and obviously you don't want the inner side of this to be rubbing on the gearbox, sorry, not gearbox, engine belt drive. So, and the idea of course is to have it all sat roughly central. Now the other thing I've been looking at is usually in Triumphs and such like, the alternator goes on so the wire comes out the back where it's protected, but in this case it's too close to the belt retaining plate. So I think in this way I'm going to actually have to put this the other way about, and then it goes in through the grommet in the middle there. The rotor and the stator. And I had some issues there. I've fitted many of these in the past and not had a problem before, but this one, the rotor was not, the outside of the rotor was not concentric with the hole for the shaft, and that of course is the datum, the shaft of the crankshaft. And I couldn't, when the stator was fitted, I couldn't get the clearance between the outside of the rotor and the inside of the stator. My first worry was that the crankshaft may have been bent. However, that didn't turn out to be the case. So I determined that the clearance between the rotor and the stator, with the rotor fitted and the stator fitted, so the clearance on this side was approximately 6 thou, but the clearance around here was approximately 0 thou, i.e. I couldn't get a feeler gauge in. When I rotated the engine, that tight spot moved around with the position of the engine. Hence my worry that the crankshaft might have been bent. That was not the case. I actually turned the shaft on the lathe that would emulate the crankshaft and fitted the rotor to that. Now I know that the run out on the shaft that the rotor fitted on was less than 1 thou. because I measured it. I then checked the outside of the rotor and found that it was not concentric, it was actually out by around 6 thou using the dial gauge. So I clamped all of that up into the lathe and then skimmed off the outside of the rotor so that it was concentric with the shaft, and I took about 10 thou off, which then gave me approximately 8 thou clearance all the way around. The stator is actually on the other way around than you would usually see it, where the cable would usually come off on the inside, but that becomes too close to the keeper for the belt drive. So that is obviously spinning, this is fixed, the cable is fixed, so this would actually eat through that cable. With it rotated 180, the cable comes out the front, and there is enough clearance just so the cable is not crushed when the stator and the outer primary chain case is fitted. I made up a little bracket so that the cable won't flop around to actually reduce some of the strain on the output of the cable from the stator. I've fitted many alternators in the past, and that is often the point where the cable is damaged. Now you can actually build that up with something like aldite, some non-conducting, especially if you've actually sleeved or replaced the insulation and the wire. Obviously you can't replace the wire because there isn't any access into the encapsulated coil. When you actually check the between the phases on the wire, you get approximately 0.7 of an ohm between each of the cables, and that shows you've got continuity on the coil. The next compromise, fitting the belt drive and the alternator as it is the fact there is a recess. The alternator rotor is further in than the stator. The magnet inside the rotor is slightly offset compared with the pole piece of the laminates in the stator, and there is a gap of about 2.3 millimeters. The width of the pole piece on the stator is 16 millimeters, and the width of the magnet is 28 millimeters, but it is offset such that the center of the magnet doesn't go over the center of the pole piece, and it's the pole pieces that actually concentrate the magnetism into the cores in the stator to give you maximum power. Thus, this is a 3-phase 180 watt alternator, and we're probably going to be dropping about 2% of that due to that offset. Shim the rotor out so it is central on the pole pieces on the stator, but because I'm now running LED lights and a tri-spark ignition system, and there's not an awful lot of other power consumption, I believe that the alternator as it stands will actually power the bike and should not be an issue. If there is an issue, then I can address that later by either shimming the rotor out, making a more efficient rectifier regulator, or reducing the power consumption in some other way. So having got that, the next bit is obviously to bolt the pillars up, and I'll just get on and do that. According to the manual, the alternator stud nuts should be done up to 180 inch-pounds. We can check with the feeler gauge that we have 1/8 hour clearance all the way around. Which we do. Okay, so that's the stator installed. I can fit the primary cover and then reinstate the footrest on this side.